find God's plan first. He knows the plan for our lives. He does. And he's claiming rights to it by himself. He has the copyrights for your life.
Digging Deep, Living a Life on Purpose. For the next 5 weeks, join us for general session teachings on finances and family. HBO, Home Bible Outreach. Sign up for a home near you. Call 708-331-3511 for locations. Real Talk, On Purpose, in the Temple. This session will be live streamed. General Finance. This session will be held in the Tabernacle. Noonday Bible Study on Tuesdays on the administration side. Financial Peace University, Saturdays 10 to 11:30 a.m. on the administration side.
Financial peace. We all want it. For a while, I didn't have it. 20 years ago, I hit rock bottom. I lost just about everything. I turned to God for help, and I learned how to handle money His way. As you can imagine, it worked. That's why I started Financial Peace University, because God's ways work. Whether you're in over your head or you're doing okay right now, if you bring home $10,000 or $10 million, if you're 21 or 61, we all need a plan. Millions of people have been through Financial Peace University. They have success stories of their own. They've learned how to get rid of debt, prepare for generations to come, and give like crazy. Your success story, your financial peace is up to you. Now is your time. It's time to take control of your money. It's time to get ready for what God has for you. It's time for financial peace.
$400 for the 400 initiatives. The Valley will be sowing seeds, meeting the needs from March through August. If you would like to be a blessing and participate, you can bring the following items to worship. Care packages such as toothbrushes and toothpaste, combs, deodorant, lotion and mouthwash, hand wipes, shampoo, hand sanitizer, first aid kits, socks, and school supplies. Are you a Valley YouTube subscriber? If not, please sign up and become a Valley YouTube subscriber to watch past sermons, the V-News, and much, much more. Kingdom Tech Center. Need tech help? Our E-Team is available for any tech needs in the Kingdom Tech Center.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another night to experience Real Talk. It's Pastor Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this experience in Real Talk. We have a two wonderful guests that are joining us tonight. We've had some great guests over the last couple of weeks. And we really believe and we really hope, but one thing we do is I'm going to say believe. The scripture in Revelations chapter 12, verse 11, that says we overcome the enemy, or we triumph over the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. What is Real Talk about? Real Talk is about real people with real circumstances, and it's just real life. Their experiences as they walk through life and how those experiences develop purpose in them. So tonight, once again, we're going to hear from two people talking about life experiences. My daughter on today called me today, and she said, Dad, I was having a conversation about parents getting old. And I was saying, I'm not old. She said, yeah, but I'm concerned about it. I said, well, what's important is you got to make sure that you make memories, good memories. Tonight, we're going to go down the lane of childhood memories. Some childhood memories are good. Some of them devastate us. But at the end of the day, it ends up in purpose. So tonight, the first guest you're going to hear from is Sabrina Williams.
Good evening. Welcome to Real Talk. The Bible says that even before we was in our mother's womb, he knew us. God created us with a purpose. But it can seem like the journey to that purpose, as we're seeking it, that we're walking around in the dark, standing on this ledge, scared to take a step, because if we take a step, we might fall. Before I tell you about my purpose, I want to tell you about my journey. I was born to a beautiful, smart, outspoken, athletic, 15-year-old abused girl, and a smart, extremely handsome, 21-year-old man who grew up in an abusive home. Now, I know you say 15, 21, in today's age, my daddy probably would have caught a case, but I'm here. Ever since I was a child, I got two mixed messages from my family. My mom, she always says, I never wanted to have any kids. And when she talks about when I was born, she talks about how she was in labor 3 whole days with me. And when I came out with these orange lips, and I was so ugly because I stayed in there 3 days. I was eating and so hungry, and she was in so much pain. She didn't even hold me when I came out. She gave me to my grandmother. My daddy, on the other hand, he would always tell me how I was his pretty girl. He would always encourage me. I followed my daddy everywhere, especially on the basketball court. But my daddy, he had some demons. He was starting to take on the nature of his abusive father, and he did drugs. One night I can remember being in the bed asleep, having to use the bathroom because my mother and father finally got their own place in a 1-bedroom, and I went out and I saw this bright white shirt with all of these red blood stains on it, and I froze. And I looked up, and it wasn't my mama, it was my mama friend. And I was so excited that it wasn't my mama at 4 years old. So the next day, I went to my mama because I'm outspoken like she is. And I said, Mama, why does Daddy hit you? She said foolishly, I don't know. Go ask him. So my daddy came home. I said, Daddy, why do you beat on Mama? He looked so shocked, but he grabbed me. He said, pretty girl, I don't know, but I'm not going to do it again. And I went home so thinking that I had saved my family. But that night, when I was asleep, I heard my mama crying. And I tilted my head and I could look in the mirror and I saw her so scared. And I could see my daddy in a way I've never seen him before. And he said, if you wake her up, I'm gonna kill you. So I went to sleep because I didn't want my mama to die. And I woke up the next morning, the 4-year-old who loves her daddy, who was her heart, woke up feeling like he was the first man that ever lied to me. And I told my mama, we gotta leave Daddy. And she did. She had me and my 1-year-old brother by then. And I didn't hardly see my daddy, the man who always encouraged me, the one who always called me a pretty girl. I didn't see him too much anymore. My mama was in her about 20s by then, and she was just a regular 20-year-old. We were doing good. My mama always worked a full-time job, and she tried to go back to school because she wanted to get her college degree. But things got rough, so sometimes we would go back home to my grandmother. And my mama started living this precarious life. So in between my mama living this precarious life and me not seeing my daddy, things started happening to me. men and women were starting to touch on me. I was starting to feel disconnected from my mama. So I didn't want people to come to my house, and I didn't want people to know about my lifestyle. So I created this image that I wanted people to know. It was a different image than who I really was, but I felt like I had to protect myself. So I created this image, and I was kind of mean, even when I went to school, because I didn't really want that many friends. I didn't want them coming back to my house. And I began lying. So it was nothing for me to start lying about everything. I became rebellious, and my mama would always just still say how she never wanted any kids and how I was an ugly baby. So I never saw myself as being beautiful. I never even thought myself as a pretty girl. My mama wanted this dainty girl who would dress up nice in nice dresses and shoes and hair all pretty, but that wasn't me. I was out there climbing on trees, running with boys, knocking them out. So I knew I wasn't the daughter that she wanted to be, at least I thought. And as my mama continued to go on and just living her lifestyle, I started smoking cigarettes by the time I was in 8th grade. I was smoking weed by the time and drinking by the time I was in 9th grade, and I really wasn't paying attention in school. The only thing that I can always remember is how much I love kids. Even when I was that 4-year-old girl who loved my daddy, I never saw myself as a kid. Everybody else was a kid, and I was the person who had to take care of kids. So by the time I got old enough to get a job, I wanted to babysit. My mama would not let me babysit. She said I could never, never watch another kid, and I didn't understand because I love children. That's the only thing I knew I loved. In school, I was messing up so much, and a counselor came to me, and she said, Sabrina, you are really smart. She said, you get A's in honor Spanish, you get A's in business law, you get A's in creative writing, and you fail any other class. She said it's impossible for you to be getting these F's and D's and everything else and passing these hard classes. She said if you apply yourself, you can graduate early. But I knew nothing about life. I knew nothing about college, so I just stayed my senior year. The only thing I wasn't doing was having sexual intercourse because my mama had scared me so bad for having a baby at 15 that I refrained from it. Until my senior year, I started dating this guy who I thought was 18. Coming to find out he was 26. When I graduated, I moved in with him. I forgot all about children and how much I love children. And since he was a drug dealer and knew that I was vulnerable, he started being abusive to me. I felt hopeless and I didn't know what to do. But I still had that little rebellious spirit, so I got away from him. I moved in with my grandma instead of my mom and started to get my life back together, so I thought, because I was only 18 at this time through all that I had been through. Even at that time, I remember my daddy, who got married, he started hanging with his wife. They started having children. And so when I would go visit him with children, I knew that I would not come back because I concerned that she didn't want me there. So I was right. The next time my daddy called, he said he didn't want us to come back because his wife only wanted to focus on their kids. So by that time, I was through with my daddy. I had met my now husband at 18 and just going through life, still not knowing what my purpose was. One day I was laying in the bed and I heard God, now that I know it's God, say, go to church. So I was excited. I got up that Sunday, went to the only church my mama had ever taken me to every once in a while. Went there, I fell asleep. I was so disappointed. I said, I'm gonna go to bed early next Saturday and I'll go back to that church. I went back to that church, I fell asleep. I said, I must have been high, I didn't hear God, I'm not going back to church no more. 8 years later, this lady from Valley Kingdom Ministry called me and told me to come. I went there, I found my purpose, and I was beginning to see what God has called me to do. And as I saw what God called me to do, I realized what my purpose was. And I was beginning to take that passion that I had for kids, and I became a children's pastor here. And I even teach other people how to mentor and minister to children. And I rebuilt the relationship that I had with my mom. And I was able to have a conversation and realize that she was being molested by her stepfather. And he told her, when you start having sex, I'll leave you alone. So when she had sex with my father for the first time, she got pregnant. So she was saying, I didn't want kids. I just wanted to stop being molested. So I only heard her say, I never wanted kids. And so her having a child at 15, still having to grow up and learn how to raise a daughter, I took on all of that, not realizing that that's not what she meant in her heart. And I only discovered that through my purpose. And I don't regret doing any of it, because when I talk to kids who have a hard time, who have low self-esteem, who have difficulties with their parents, who have difficulties communicating, I can say to them that everything that you're going through, God will use it and be able to let you minister to other people, and you will still succeed no matter where you come from. I could talk about being homeless to a child. I remember one time, when we was growing up, my mom, we slept in a van, and I had to wash up in the McDonald's bathroom. And the Caucasian lady came in and looked at me, and she had the most disgusting face that I ever seen. And that was the last drop of self-esteem that I ever had. But now, because I know my purpose and I know who I am in God, nobody could ever who know me say I got low self-esteem. I always call myself urban, because I know I am unique, I am resilient, I am bold, I am ambitious, and I am necessary. My father gave his life to Christ, my mama gave his life to Christ, and we are doing some great things in the kingdom. So purpose in God is necessary when you go through those things in life that you just don't understand why you're going through. I had to go through what I feel like a Job experience, so that when I minister to other kids or teach other kids about other people how to minister to kids, that they feel the passion that I have to making sure that children know their purpose in God and that they give their life to God. So I just want to tell you that you can have the blindfold taken off and walk into the purpose that God has for you.
Real people, real talk about real life. I know that story just touched your heart, man. At some point, we were all children, and we all have different types of experiences as we go through life. Some of them, as I said earlier, are quite devastating to us. Even as we become adults, whatever happened to us as children usually shape and affect what we become as adults. We walk through life, we walk through church, we walk through our jobs, and we don't really fully understand how people become who they are, but we're angry at them. We got people at work who are self-centered and egotistical and arrogant, but we don't know what happened to them that got them to that point, to who they are today. I'm suggesting that we need to take time to get to learn one another and understand our stories. As we learn one another and understand our stories, then we become more patient with each other. Can you imagine the children that are out there today who don't have fathers, who don't have mothers? They don't really ever get the opportunity to feel the acceptance and the identity that comes when you have a father or a mother. They usually end up trying to cover themselves as little children, to protect themselves as little children. When rejection and low self-esteem kicks in, all of those types of things, they come as a result of the experiences that happen in life. But tonight, we just want to let people know those are the things that we all go through. But at the end of the day, at some point, you got to let go of what is attached to you to get all that God has for you. We're going to hear from another gentleman right now. Listen to the voice of Travail Southall.
My story is a little different. When Pastor Jeff called me, I was a little perplexed to talk about it because most of my life I ran from the story. So let me go back 40 years ago. Well, I'm 43, so 41 years ago. It's when I started having severe ear infections. They became so chronic that I had to get emergency surgeries, and nobody knew what was wrong with me. And so as time went on, in and out of the hospital, I could not talk, literally. I could not complete a full sentence. So if you go back then, we was in a black community, middle class, healthcare wasn't, the resources wasn't that good for us, so it was automatically assumed that I had a learning disability. So even though I went to school, I used to have the yellow bus transport me to another school for learning disability classes. Now here's the thing, as I still was in and out of hospital and they still trying to understand what is wrong with me because of these chronic ear infections, I was still unable to speak in full sentences. This went on all the way until me entering into the first grade, and then something magical happened. An organization by the name, they're called SOTOMA. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. The organization is an acronym, it's called Service to Mankind. And what they do is they specialize in hearing impaired. And so what happened is they were going around to schools just giving free hearing tests, because what happened is they were finding out a lot of kids was being misdiagnosed of having learning disabilities when it was in fact a physical disability. So when SOTOMA came in, I was tested and I fit that statistic. And my case was kind of chronic. Now here's the situation. I was not deaf. I can hear sound. But the problem is I had a nervous, my inner ear was damaged. It's called the cochlea. And in the cochlea, in your inner ear, you have receptors. And these receptors is what picks up the vibration. It lets you know the volume of audio coming in, and it translates the sound waves so that you can understand speech. In my case, I can hear you talking, but in the middle of you talking, it sounds like you're underwater. And so once they told my parents this, my parents was relieved, for one, because they was like, oh, our kid's not learning impaired. But then it was the thing of how to fix it. So the beautiful thing about it is SOTOMA had a grant that would offer me to get therapy. I had 2 therapists come to the school, and they taught me how to talk, they taught me speech, and the other major thing they taught me was how to read lips and how to understand body language. So I did that 5 times a week, along with trying to catch up, because remember, I was learning impaired, so I was behind. So after all the testing and they knew what was wrong with me, I'm in 2nd grade now, but I'm like starting in 1st grade, so I had to catch up. So it was relentless. I don't know what it was about me in school, but at the time I just wanted to be a normal kid. I was teased. I was a little tall for my age, and I couldn't talk, so I was kind of bullied. Thank God I had an older brother who really had my back, who fought for me, who made sure. You got to think again, I was on the yellow bus. So, but by the time I was in 4th grade, I was able to talk in full sentences, and I was able to read, and comprehend what I was reading pretty good, because I could actually hear what I was saying. And this was a beautiful, beautiful thing. But the thing is, I had to have these therapists with me for years. I mean, because it was relentless. I had to learn how to understand your body language. I had to, when I couldn't hear the sound, I had to make up by making sure that you were looking at me. I had to wear these big hearing aids. Like now, we take advantage of all the audio devices and stuff we have. But if you go back 35 years ago, I mean, they used to have to wear this big old hearing aid, which, you know, kids can be so cruel. And at the same time, I was wearing glasses. But I just worked so hard just to be normal, so hard. But the one thing, my father had a friend. His name was Jerry. He used to come draw these comic book characters. And this is what brings me into my purpose. Every day, he used to kind of sketch these beautiful, beautiful pieces. Yep. Y'all gotta forgive me. Like I said, I ran away. I always ran away from this testimony all my life. But he used to draw these characters, and I used to take them. So one day, I found I can draw. Not only did I find out I can draw, but I found out I was good. It was man, I'm so sorry. But it was the first time in my life, after all the struggle, all the hard work, and just trying to be a normal kid, that I actually found out that I had a talent. And I drew these pieces so well that by the time I got to junior high, that I was outdrawing everybody. Like my art skills were pretty good. But I still had to work so hard. And the only thing I knew how to do was my artwork. And I knew the only way I could do my artwork is if I kept my grades up. And when you're a black kid in an all-black school back in that day, trying to be an artist was not a career choice because we weren't schooled of all the many things that you can do in the arts. So I had a lot of challenges. By this time, I'm in high school. I'm 6'2". Now, if you know anything about hearing impaired, if you try to play a sport, and when you're 6'2" and a freshman, you play sports. But because of my hearing disability, I had to work 3 times as hard just to play a sport. So I did it, worked hard. I was okay, but I was not good enough to, that I know I get a, college education, anything like that with. But I knew I can draw. I knew I can paint. And I picked it up so well. And by the time my junior year hit, I was involved with AXO. I got awards in my art. And so by this time, I was like, man, I got the world on my tip. I can do this. I can go to college. Now, you got to understand, I was labeled handicapped. So saying to go into a big school, they would probably said if I was to do it, you can go to a junior college. But I was like, no, I need to go to a university because I want to be an artist. Nobody really had any high expectation for me. The counselors told me the most I ever be is an art teacher. They told me I'll probably be a starving artist, trying to sell my work, because nobody was really educated on all the many things you can do with your art. And I just believed, I don't know where it came from. I just knew I can be successful with my art. So, filled out the applications for college. I made sure I had my grades. A bust my butt off for the scores, but I was denied. Because I needed certain criterias that a lot of universities wasn't willing to provide for me. Note takers, professors had to make sure they had to talk in front of the class so I can read their lips. And it was a list of other stuff that I needed in order for me to be successful. Well, I just believe after they told me no, I just believe somebody would take me. I didn't work this hard for them to tell me no. So I figured if I'm gonna try this next move, I'm gonna go hard. So I got an interview at Loyola University. Now my grades met their criteria, my test scores just barely got there, but I got an interview with a woman by the name of Sister Jean. Most of y'all probably remember from the Final Four last year. Sister Jean had a thing for tall black men. I didn't know at the time, but she thought I was a basketball player coming in there. But when she heard my story, and I ain't gonna lie, this is the last time I told this story. It was to her. And she said, if you do everything you just told me, and you keep a 3.0 and above average, I will provide you with everything you need. And you got to promise me you're going to graduate. Well, to sum everything up, talking about purpose, how everybody told me that you will not succeed in art, and your purpose. Not only did I graduate, I got a couple of awards with it. Along with the awards, I got my first internship at one of the top architectural firms in the city of Chicago. From there, that's when I was relentless. It was nothing that could not stop me. I had a purpose. I wasn't sure what God was planning for me, but everything was going in the right direction. I met my beautiful wife, who was so encouraging, and she just believed in me. She even believed in me so much that I quit my job because God told me that you should be doing more. And that's what I did. And I started TS Design almost 20 years ago. And I've been in business for 20 years. And so my purpose was, and my father's not here, he's resting in heaven. When I realized my purpose, and this is, I'm gonna leave y'all with this. My father said, God has really blessed you. He said, I didn't even see you reaching this potential. But the last thing he told me, he said, I'm proud of you. And make sure you use your gift for the kingdom. Put the church first. He told me that almost 8 years ago. And that's what I did. I put the church first. Not only has my clientele in the church grown, I've made more money dealing with the church than in any area of my business. So my purpose was to solve problems with my art. And that's what I've been doing, and I've been doing it successfully through the kingdom. Please forgive me for being so emotional. Like I said, I haven't told this story in over 20 years. And I just thank God for the gift. And I thank God for giving me the work. I never had a job. I always worked. And because of my work, it allowed me to fulfill my purpose and to continue to fulfill my purpose. Thank you.
Real people, real talk about real life. T.S., I call him T.S., his name is Travell Southall. That's my guy. This incredible woman, it's my girl. I love these people, but you never know the type of thing they had to get to where they are today. That's why we can't judge each other. That's why we can't preclude some things about people. We can't do that to each other. So we're gonna sit down and have a conversation. And T.S., I'm gonna ask you just do one thing for me. Don't make me cry.
He was making me cry. I was like, oh.
And man, can I tell you, man, those stories I think are so important to people. To really begin to realize that all of us, we all have a story. Mm-hmm. And in those stories are real feelings, right? And as you were talking, as both of you called, one scripture came to mind, Romans 8:18. I reckon that the suffering of this present time doesn't compare to the glory that's going to be revealed in us, man. Right. And you all are walking in God's glory. So, T.S., I'm going to start with you. In those moments, man, and I gotta take you back there again, bro. In those moments, man, as a child, and what you were going through at that particular time, give us some of the actual feelings that you had at that particular time about yourself.
Well, I was the middle child, and it was 5 of us, and I was labeled a scapegoat. Because my father had dealt with a little bit, he dealt with addiction. And through that, when you've been teased and you're not fitting in, you just feel, you have this sense of fear of abandonment, like I cannot succeed. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at everybody achieving so much and just like, I used to always feel like, why do I have to work so hard? I was like, why am I having to work? So why is my life, why I got to be the guy that has to go through all this? And that's how I used to feel.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was thinking about myself. I grew up with 9, I got 9 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
5 sisters and 3 brothers. And I was like the 3rd oldest. And they put this thing on me, like I'm supposed to be the one to make it out the projects, get us out of the projects. I mean, as a kid, that's a heavy burden. And it's because, I was the one to get the good grades, got good conduct, the teachers loved me and all of that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, I'm the savior of the family. That's a lot of pressure. And that pressure stayed with me until I was maybe early 20s or something like that. And I thank God that I was able to kind of sustain myself through that pressure. But I didn't really have, because they put that kind of pressure on me, I was the kid where, I could just do anything I wanted to do. Everybody else had all these different rules, and I ain't had none. And then I growing up as a person that don't have no rules and don't have no borders. I grew up as a person that was arrogant and prideful. That happens to us. Yeah. And I had to deal with that too at an early age, because I started making decisions that had ramifications to other people. When I was selfish and thinking about myself. Yeah. So, I got to ask you the same question, because there are real feelings as you're going through the things that you're going through as a child. Give us some of those feelings that you were feeling at that time.
Well, I always felt, because I was very outspoken and the one who always protests, so I think people thought I was stronger than I was, so I could never show that I was weak, which is why I developed these 2 type of personalities, the one who was really me and one I was just wanting to show people. But really I felt like just I didn't know what I wanted to do with life. I didn't feel like I fit with people, not knowing that I wasn't supposed to fit in, that God made me a certain way. And I just felt like I wasn't pretty, you know, like all the other girls was pretty. Why
Even
wasn't
though
I pretty?
daddy's called you pretty girl?
Yeah, because he wasn't there. Like my daddy wasn't there, and that was the one who was putting that inside of me. My mama couldn't articulate what she was really saying, so I only heard her say, you was an ugly baby. So me only hearing that, growing up, I just didn't think I was pretty. But I really felt like I didn't care about the world. I just tuned out. I was always in my head. And that's why I always say God made me creative and not crazy, because I was just in my head all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And again, as you're talking, I'm thinking about how sometimes, you know, as you processing that stuff, man,
Yeah.
how do you, as a child, how do you process those types of feelings as you walking through life?
Well, I didn't process it until I became an adult, because I was just in always survival mode. I always had to survive. Like, it's just me. How do I survive? How do I get through this person touching me? How do I get through being homeless? How do I get through people looking at me crazy? You know, how do I get through just getting through school? So I didn't really have to go through it until I gave my life to Christ and just was becoming the person that God wanted me to be. Then I had to process all of those different feelings. And, you know, I'm not a crier too much. Sorry, I didn't mean that. You was making me cry. But really, that I had to cry. Like, I had to learn, like, no, you have to cry this out. Absolutely. You have to get that emotion out so that God can begin to hear you. So I had not to always be strong, become weak, and then I became strong in Him.
Yeah. And that one of my favorite scriptures is, and I say it all the time, you go ahead and be weak because His strength is made perfect in us.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as a man, I'm going to tell you something, I don't mind crying. But in those moments, I think a lot of times for me, growing up as a child, when I couldn't process, and you're right, as children, we really can't really, I used to just cry. Because I couldn't figure out what was going on and, you know, what these feelings that I should have. And, you know, growing up in the environment that I grew up in, I just kind of was like, I lived in fear all the time.
Yeah.
So as we think about those moments, is there a person, and we know God is one of them later on in your life, but as a child, is there a person, T.S., that really affected your life in a positive way, where you actually grabbed hold to something they may have said or something they may have done that helped you through the process?
It was a collaboration, I think. And, you know, it was different things that my father said when I was growing up. You know, one of the most powerful things he ever told me was, I believe in you.
Affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I have my older brother who just always had my back. But one of the things he told me that always stuck with me is, like, if you're going to do something, do it all the way. He was like, when I was running the streets, he said, one thing that kept me alive, he said, if I was going to do this, I can't do it 10%, 20%. So he said, if you want to do what you're going to say you're going to do, don't half-step it. Go all the way with it. And then I used to just see other influential people in the church, because I grew up in the church, you know, Kojic. And we used to have, when I was coming up, it was Tony Green and Edward Goodwin. They used to come pick us up with the youth bus. And, I mean, it was those moments right there that, you know, really influenced me, just being around that positive energy, just knowing, like, hey, these people are good people. So it was like, I know a lot of people talk about how celebrities and stuff influenced them. Me, it was just always a community, people that was on the block, you know, that showed me love and just kept me focused, and, you know. But one thing I really embraced is that I was happy that when I was growing up, nobody treated me like a victim, you know, like, because he has his handicap, we're just gonna push him off to the side and feel sorry for him, because I see that a lot going on, people playing the victim role. I mean, I just think it was more so people didn't understand what I was going through, so they felt that they were doing what they were supposed to do, but it was like, no, you're going to still work. You know? You're going to still do this. You know? You're going to still be, you know, it wasn't like, oh, well, you know, he has a situation. It was never that. So that's what I'm grateful for.
There was a moment, and as you sent your story in, where you was talking about how art school had affected you, and what the things that happened in that environment. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so that was everything. Like, when you're around what you actually love, because remember, all my life I was told that you can't. It was just like, in our community, it was just like art. You just know from when you were in your art class. Yeah. So you're just gonna teach art. But people really didn't pay attention that if you look around, go outside, you see all the beautiful billboards, everything you see, you're being advertised to every 7 seconds. So somebody did that. If you walk in this room here, somebody had to design this room. And it wasn't until I went into art school that I found out all the many different things you can do with your art. Not just drawing a comic book, which I love to do, but it was so much more I can do with my art to be effective. And that's really what changed my life. It really opened me up like, wait a minute, I was told that I can only teach art, or I can only draw or paint and hope somebody buy a painting. No, I didn't know that people would commission me, to do this work, and I can make it a full-time career. Just like people say, well, you're a tech guy and you know this technology so well. I said, I don't look at technology as being a mathematical thing. I look at it as being a language, part of my art. It's something that I picked up very well. That's what allows me to do my art. But to me programming and understanding the web is just nothing but another language. Same way they used to teach me when I learning how to read lips and body language. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I laugh at you, man, because I've been around you a long time. There's some things I just didn't know. And it's as you talking, man, I'm getting to know you better, and bro, it's a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? And let me say, the reason why I talked about the art school piece, because that was a big part of my life, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, of course, but I was so good at art that they sent me away to this school called Skinner School on the west side. And when I went there, it actually began to make me feel like I was normal, because I was around people that actually enjoyed what I enjoyed doing. So you're absolutely right. So now I'm going to bring this question to you about influential people who may have said something, done something in your life that kind of helped shape who you are today.
Well, when I was younger, just because my mama had to be the disciplinarian, my grandmother was. Now, even though she was just one real outspoken woman who just had this pillar of strength, but I was like her child because my mom had me at 15, so she kind of helped raise me and watch me, and she was the one who held me when my mom had me, so that's one of my pillars of strength. And then just coming to Valley Kingdom Ministries, Apostle, I didn't know anything. I came in like, what's Genesis? What's Revelation?
We call ourselves unchurched.
Right, unchurched. So just his teachings, giving me the revelation and knowledge. Like, I never saw myself standing up talking in front. I was always outspoken, but I just never saw myself teaching. I never saw myself even working with children as a children's pastor, even though I love children. I never saw myself doing that. Just the people that I work with in children's ministry and my friends that I've met, like, help build me up to be just who I am. My husband is like, you could do it. He's like, no nonsense. He don't take it. Just go out there and do it, and correcting me, like, if something is wrong. So just working here with the staff, it's just different people who just give you nuggets to help you along the way. But when I was younger, it was definitely my grandma. My mom and me are really close now. She's a great adult parent. I tell it all the time.
That's what her grace is. I got you. In that whole thing, I was thinking about this guy, Mr. Pulliam, 5th grade teacher, and he said this to me. He said, to get what you want out of life is to be the master of your own desires and aspirations. Yeah. And I'm 50. I'll be 55 this year, and I still remember that. I look 30, don't I? But when he said that, man, it stuck with me all of this time. And then, of course, coaches that were around in the neighborhood, because I was an athlete. Those are the guys that really stuck me. At church, I'll never forget Willie Mae McFadden, man. Willie Mae McFadden she used to run a youth ministry at that time. And she touched my life in a special way because she did some out-of-the-box type things in that Pentecostal church. Okay, so here's a question that's a little, it's going to require some depth a little bit. I want you to talk about, Sabrina, what could have happened. Because as we go through things, man, thank God for who he is and what he has done.
Yeah.
But can you imagine what could have happened to you?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
I think about that often because my brother, my mom had 2 children by my dad, even though he has 4, so he has a total of 6. But my brother, he is what I feel like I could have been if it wasn't for God's mercy and grace. Like, he still is taunted by just the things that happen with us when we are young and the process of how he thinks, you know, and I feel like it's just me and my mom, mercy and grace, but just stuck in that anger, in that fatherlessness, you know, not being able to just really reconcile, you know, with our parents in a way that's not disrespectful or, you know, hostile. And I don't have any of that. Like, me and my father have a great relationship now, and he was in my children's life. They love him. I saw what he would have been for me if he wasn't on drugs. Just seeing him liberated and free and going to minister to other people and my mom. So I thank God that I'm not, like, crazy or depressed or just, you know, because it was a time when I felt like, okay, I feel like I'm really depressed. You know, even when I first got here, how I knew I had to deal with that stuff is because I was feeling really depressed, like I didn't want to get out of the bed. But I felt like I'm saved, so why am I feeling like this? It's because I never dealt with it. So I know I could just have easily been triggered mentally from anything that I have had happen to me, because all the stuff I talked about happened before I was even 18. So now being 18 and forced to be an adult on my own, I just thank God that, you know, I'm in my right mind. Yeah.
What about you, T.S.?
That is a very deep question.
Well, I was going to take you down in there.
Yeah, that's very deep, because I always think, like, what if Satoma didn't show up that day? I think, what if, even when they found a solution, what if, because that affects the parents too. I had young parents. They were in their early 20s. What if they didn't stay consistent with the plan? And where would I be? You know, what if, wow, that's,
Yeah.
you know, what, you know, man, it's kind of scary to think. So that's what really put true definition of purpose.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And the reason why I ask questions like that, man, is because I think we sometimes, I mean, I think it'll when you speak like that, when you speak to that aspect of it, you become even more grateful and then admire the orchestration of the hand of God on your life, man.
Yeah.
But I can say this, is that because I worked so hard, I had to inspire to things. Because people told me what I could not have or what I was limited to. And so I always, because of the art, I used to always fantasize about having beautiful, beautiful things. And I wanted the best. Even when it came to relationships, I wanted to have the girl that Jock had. You said I can't have this. If the popular kid can get with her, I want to get with her. And, you know, I want to put my wife on the spot, but I've known her since I was young. And because of my situation, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't feel that I was smart, because I'm working 3 times as hard. I'm like, so what does this mean? I got to hang around people less smarter than me? I know this is crazy that I'm talking like this, but I always made sure I was around people that were smarter than me. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to be around this person because he's smarter than me, because then that always made me look good. And then when I see my wife, not only was she was a beautiful woman at the time, she was extremely smart. I mean, she was in college at like 14. So I used to, like, any chance I get, I used to try to flirt with her. I would be too scared because I was like, she's way out my league and older than me. But not that much, by months, baby.
No.
But, you know, when I became grown, I finally had enough confidence. I felt that I reached a point in my life that I can, because my father always told me that, you know, if you want the best, you're going to have to work for the best, you know. And that's what I did. So I felt confident enough to talk to her. So she was my aspiration to inspire, you know, to be better. Yeah. So you ask the question, like, if we, you know, well, if that didn't happen, where would I be? It's very scary to think what my life would have been. I mean, would I have been that victim, probably still in some hospital somewhere, deteriorating, probably not talking in full sentences. I don't know. It's scary to think about.
But the being delivered from it makes you more passionate about the purpose.
Yes.
Because you're passionate about, and sometimes people don't get it. Like, why are you so passionate about making sure that this is set up right in children's ministry? Or why you have to have this curriculum? Or why are you always pushing the bar? Why are you trying to be the next, but because
why you still at church at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Right. Because you know that you have the ability to affect, someone else who may be going through that, or you have the ability to instill God in them so they can discover their purpose, or visually let people see it so they can discover their purpose, or you're helping somebody else's purpose come to life. So that kind of thing gives you the passion for it. I don't regret my childhood because it just made me who I am. Yeah.
And that's a powerful statement. So as we get prepared to close, I want you all to do something that I've asked all the other guests to do, to speak to that person that may be at that point where you are right now, and encourage and inspire them through your closing message.
I would just like to say to that kid who probably is not tall enough, who probably have a hearing disability like me, or have some type of disability, or who's even being bullied at school, or feel that they're not at that potential that they need to be, just stay focused. Hard work pays off. Patience pays off. And as I got older, I'm thinking, I want to thank that bully for bullying me, telling me that I ain't a thank you. That person, that counselor that told me that the only place you're going to be is an art teacher or a starving artist. Thank you to that counselor, because it made me work hard to, at that time, I was like, I'm going to prove a point, I'm going to be better. Yeah. To that guy, I was like, you will never be able to get a girl like that. Well, you see the woman I got now, and with 2 beautiful kids. So thank you to that person, and just to that person who just having a hard time believing in yourself, latch on to somebody who will believe in you. Because I know a lot of people say, I'm going to just do this on my own. I would not be where I'm at if I tried to do this by myself. Yeah. I had a lot of help, and to thank you to everybody who helped me. To that person, do not try to do it alone. But work hard, stay consistent. I know you probably won't see it now, and I know you want it right now. We live in a this world now. They got to have it right now. But success comes from work and solving problems. Yeah. And through it all, I think my life, I was just being conditioned to get me to where I am right now. Just like you said, you didn't know my condition. It's just that came from a lot of work and just paying attention to people. And now that I can talk, I probably sometimes talk too much, but I'm just happy I can talk.
Sabrina?
I would like to say, just hold on. A lot of times, as a child, I used to say I minister to children and they don't control their lives. And so you might just be living in the circumstances of your parents. Don't walk around angry because you just don't know their story. But don't let what's happening to you now make you put on a mask and that you have to work so hard to take off later. Stay true to who you are and just believe God has a plan for your life, and just don't make bad decisions based on the circumstances that you're in now. See yourself just getting out of it and using that to fuel you up for where you're going next in God.
Awesome, man. I appreciate both of you all. And you all, let me just tell you this. At the end of the day, T.S. went through what he went through for you. Sabrina went through what she went through for you. Yep. I went through what I went through for you. How does that happen? It's Revelations 12 and 11. Yep. You just got the testimony. We overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. Hope you've been inspired. Hope you've been encouraged. Thank you for joining Real Talk. God bless you. Be all that God has given you to be. Live on purpose.